Marriott, right, is almost 100 years old. We have had, I used to say this and I still say it, a privacy program for years. We've, of course, had a very public data breach, right, and cyber incident in 2018. That was really right before GDPR, and before the data incident was my first involvement with privacy, just to give you context. And so welcome to the world of privacy and cyber. I kind of learned right through the firestorm, if you will. And there we had not really, I'll say, formalized the privacy program and the engagement with the board. And quickly, right around that time, not because of GDPR and certainly not because of the data breach, we started to formalize it and then we fast-tracked it. So as a U.S. public company, right, we do have a public board. We meet on a quarterly basis, and we now do have a dedicated committee at the board level focused on technology, information security, and privacy. So on a quarterly basis, I, with my colleagues, either from the technology organization and our chief information security officer, we brief the board on anything that we are working through. And so that's really at the committee level, at the board level. We also do a full board presentation on an annual basis having to do with all things really cyber related and technology. Each one gets to the full board. So a committee, in our case, is just a couple of members of the board. Everyone is actually invited to attend, which is somewhat unusual, and oftentimes all of the board members will come and join because they do want to hear and they do think it's an important risk area or important risk areas for them to hear about. And then we also do education sessions with the board on a regular basis. So that's really kind of the routine engagement that we do have with them. We also, of course, have quite a presence in the EU, and we do have a committee and a board that sits at the Ireland level, so I do want to kind of focus on that. Those folks are here in the EU, and often many of them sit actually and live in Ireland. And so that is part of, I'll say, our internal governance structure, and they do also report to our board. So something I just wanted to mention. But in terms of your question of when is it required and when is it a decision, it will depend certainly in the context of a cyber incident on the nature of the incident. So similar to what you had before in terms of the different levels, if it's critical or high, we certainly report to our board and to the committee. In terms of what is required, it's great timing for our question because this is something that we do think about, and that is probably the only circumstance where we really would need, let's say, approval is if we were to make a payment in a ransom incident. Our cyber incident response plan and program does require that. It's not the full board approval. One, that's just kind of tactically not realistic, especially if you're kind of going against the clock and you have time is of the essence for us. So it is just one member of the board. It also requires approval from our CEO. And it could be a different member of the board, again, just trying to be very practical in terms of trying to reach people in the heat of an incident. But the majority of all other decisions really having to do with the cyber incident or the use of data, that's really management's decision. And the board, of course, may at times have questions or have a point of view, but that's really within management's discretion. I think the only time that, and I think even the approval, thankfully we haven't been in that situation, but technically one of the board members is supposed to approve if we are to make a ransom payment.